Hey, Detoxers! In today's episode of the Disinfo Detox, we dive deep into the dark art of character assassination with Sergey Samoilenko from the Character Assassination and Reputation Politics Research Lab at George Mason University. Sergey, welcome to the Disinfo Detox.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of going to your conference, the Character Assassination and Reputation Conference at George Mason University. And as someone who's studied fake news and disinformation, I was amazed that I had not been introduced to this earlier. So, for our audience out there who maybe kind of sort of understands what character assassination is, can you give a better idea or summation of what character assassination is?
Yeah, so we basically say it's a strategic destruction of someone's reputation. So whether individual or organizational, but basically it's a sustained and kind of deliberate effort to ruin someone's public image or reputation. That's basically what it is.
Okay, and then talk to me a little bit about kind of the overlap there. What role does fake news or disinformation, as it's called, play in character assassination?
Well, because you can ruin someone's reputation in many different ways. I mean, you can insult someone, you can call someone names, you can accuse someone of some sins, for example, of some moral corruption, right? So one way to ruin reputation is through gossip, spreading rumors, or deception. So basically, simply by poisoning the well and spreading rumors and telling untrue information about the person or his or her connections, you can easily uh, undermine someone's credibility. That's pretty easy. So, I mean, we've seen this in political campaigns. We've seen this in public life. I mean, it happens all the time in entertainment. So, hey, lots of examples out there.
Okay, when we say it happens, though, I think some people might have the misconception that one person doesn't like another person and starts saying falsehoods, which obviously can be a form of character assassination. But I think what you found is interesting is that it's much bigger than that. There's ways in which very powerful actors, institutions, and systems can assassinate people's characters. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. So, what you're referring to, like ad hominem or character attacks, and we can see them a lot, like in individual conversations. I mean, we call each other names if we're unhappy with someone's decisions. Uh, Someone you kind of through nicknames, I mean, or ridiculing, you can actually laugh at someone and just which also might challenge someone's public reputation. But it's much more dangerous when some of those methods and tactics could be used by organizations or even governments by designing strategic, sustained disinformation campaigns. Sometimes we refer to major techniques such as abusive ad hominem, demonization, dehumanization used in propaganda campaigns. I mean, all of them were talked about by the pioneers of political science, when they talked about the First and the Second World Wars. There was the Institute of Propaganda in this country in the 1930s that were mostly studying Nazi propaganda. And a lot of their campaigns were based around those techniques or methods, basically assigning someone's a name, like animalistic name, or degrading somebody by just spreading um, false information about the person or even group of people, right? So again, it's much more dangerous and much more sophisticated when someone who is going to launch an attack has power, resources, and willing to do so, because you really have to have a invested stakeholder or actor who can go after you.
Okay, yeah, very good point. And thinking about how far communication technologies have come since the Nazi regime, as you discussed there, I imagine one of the really pivotal factors in complicating character assassination has been the advent of social media, or so-called social media. What have you kind of found in your research? How has social media, if at all, kind of changed the game when it comes to character assassination?
Yeah, so I like to cite Eric Desenhall, who is a crisis communication manager, and he wrote a couple of good books on reputation. One of them is called Glassjaw, and so in that book, he basically talks about the rule of three V's. So the volume, venom, and velocity. So with social media, there is more negative information because actually it's clickbait and negative information sells. A lot of media companies uh, capitalize on it. They monetize negative information, and simple kind of negative response bring them profit. So hey, so they're not interested in restraining some of that um, uh, negative behavior, like trolling, pranking, what I call trickster behavior. So we have lots of tricksters out there, agents of chaos. Some of them are just pursuing personal reasons, other just paid to do such things. So we heard about those paid bots, right, that spreading misinformation, for example. So because of social media messengers, I mean, information is faster. I mean, you can really through tweets or through one post really ruin someone's reputation simply by spreading lie, right? And just there is more of that. So of that stuff out there because like I said, the commercial interest of today media pretty much focused on spreading information that is based on conflict, sensation, and negativity. Because I mean, it's all public centered. We like to learn some juicy details about public personas, and a lot of this information is really unwarranted sometimes. So that's why, kind of, unfortunately, we live in a day and age where the commercial interests of the media prevail their professional or interests.
Okay, now I want to in a second get to some of the some specific examples and talk maybe about solutions or ways of resisting. But before we do, talk to me a little bit about, and I'm sure our audience is wondering this. I know I am. How did you get into this topic? Of all the topics in the world to research and pay attention to, how did you get into this one?
Right, right. So, well, I was actually happy teaching crisis communication and public relations at George Mason University. And then I was really wondering sometimes why nobody really wants to talk about some of the negative advertising or public information campaigns that have to do with like propaganda or spreading, some untrue messages during armed conflicts. And a lot of PR folks would say, "Well, we don't really do things like this." So, I mean, we used to, but like now, we let's just talk about ethics. Let's just talk about good stuff, right? But I knew it's out there, and we see it every time when we have the elections. I mean, there are negative campaigns, there's negative ads. I mean, hey, what happened to all those folks? Who knows? Who know how to do that stuff? So I became interested, and I realized my role as a social scientist is educate the public. So because the first step is to recognize some of those techniques, some of those tactics, and basically tell the public, hey, so we have, for example, several types of ad hominem attacks. I mean, we discuss them in rhetorical studies and argumentation. So, for example, guilt by association, right? Or name calling, or accusing somebody of bias. I mean, there are classifications out there, but we also realize that in our day and age, I mean, there is more stuff out there. So, for example, accusing somebody of mental illness, right, or sexual deviance, or trying to silence someone, like, for example, deplatform somebody by just muting the person and not letting somebody to defend his or her reputation. So there are lots of different techniques. So when we became, me and my co-founders of the lab, we started studying the whole thing. So we thought, well, we are not teaching people how to do that, but we're inviting everyone to join our journey to explore educate and helping people recognize some of those attempts. So, for example, if you learn how to recognize some of those attacks on you, you next time you'll be more aware and you can tell your friends about this. And then once you know those attacks, you will come up with ways how to counter them in the future. So that's why we got into this simply by understanding that as social scientists, we're not doing enough. We're not really serving society well. And so we need to do something about this.
Do you very fascinating stuff? And do you have a kind of example maybe to help explain how this kind of works step by step? Right? Maybe some person or organization wants to assassinate the character of an individual or another organization. What do they do? I mean, how do you how do you organize? Do you have some
All
example?
right. I said there are lots of different ways how to do that. But when we talk about the main media strategies out there, obviously, you really have to understand how some of those strategic actors work. They really have to understand the public opinion and they have to understand the media environment. And just like I said, media environment is really conducive to this kind of stuff, right? So, I mean, spreading unwarranted claims, negativity, and some because the name for all of this, the driver for character assassination is scandal. So sometimes, even if you have a reputational crisis, I mean, it can be mitigated or handled by organization. But with a scandal, it's really hard to uh, you manage this issue. So obviously, the first way how strategic actors can assassinate someone's character is to either provoke a scandal or amplify already existing issues, so or blow this out of proportion. So that's why the first strategy is called provocation strategy. So we have three major strategies: provocation, contamination, and obliteration. So the first one, you provoke a scandal, blow out of proportion something that is might not be very significant. But guess what? In character assassination, is the public has the upper hand. It doesn't really matter whether it's true or not. If the public decides it's true, it's true. You're done. So that's why it's public driven, and what we say, it's co-creational in a sense. Kind of, it's co-constructed together with the attacker and the in public opinion. So provocation is the first one. Then you may try to use what we call poisoning the well or contaminating the environment by spreading misinformation, for example, right? So a lot of conversations right now happen in those echo chambers, filter bubbles online, right? So you infiltrate those echo chambers by trying to spread a story or conspiracy theory. And well, the Pizzagate scandal taught us it's possible, right? That where online violence can turn into physical violence, right? So, in other words, a person can just like walk into a restaurant carrying the rifle, ready to fire a gun, right? So, and basically, how did the person know about this thing? So, from the internet, from all this thing he learned in that gated community, right, on the internet. So obviously, spreading this deceptive information or contamination is the second major strategy. And finally, one easy way to prevent someone from protecting his or her reputation is by basically silencing the person. With editing Wikipedia, we see how a lot of good information just disappears. I mean, you can easily erase someone from memory by removing good things about the person and replacing it with some negative stuff, right? I mean, it's been done for years. I mean, we know how some of the ancient emperors were disgraced when they were no longer in power, right? How they disappeared from the coins, how their statues were destroyed. Well, nowadays, I mean, people disappear from the internet, from online, right? So the memory of their good deeds and their accomplishments is destroyed. So, and if you're not on the internet, you do not exist. Unfortunately, that's the times we live in.
So, talk to me a little more about the erasure of the internet. That must mean or include, I would assume, you tell me, but hiring probably companies who specialize in scrubbing stuff off the internet. Do they make, do they take down stuff? Do they threaten people to take down stuff? How do
Not necessarily. Sometimes, I mean, you just have eager activists or enthusiasts who will just do it for you. I mean, like they would be doing things on purpose. Like we have such a thing like rewriting history, for example. And there are lots of political activists who will be just happy to rewrite history on the internet if they don't like something they read about, right? So all you have to do is basically plant the seed and just create this culture where what you say is true. And that's why those echo chambers and those online gated communities could be very dangerous.
Oh, that's very, very fascinating. And then what about the kind of reverse? What about folks who maybe have been the victim of character assassination incorrectly, had their character assassinated? What do people do in that situation? Let's even talk about the people with like the greatest resources. What can you do to combat that?
So, unfortunately, I mean, in this country, we have a very limited way how to handle intranet character assassination. So I think the European Union is much better prepared to handle all defamation that happens online. For example, they have the right to be forgotten. So in a sense, if you're wrongly accused, you have the chance to kind of contest it, or the internet companies can actually investigate every case. So in this country, we don't really have a legislation that allows to do that. So, for example, if somebody mistakenly posted something online and your employer found it or came across, I mean, you basically, unprotected. So, but there are different ways how to handle that. Obviously, we have defamation lawyers. We have uh, different ways of addressing the issue. But again, a lot of what you can do, unfortunately, is very reactive. But one way what we can do proactively is education, and obviously educating the public about methods, forms, strategies of character assassination, and different ways how to handle that. So we during the conference we talked a lot about the inoculation strategies. So how you can actually through media literacy campaign inoculate the audience by again, educating them about most common forms of misinformation and character attacks, and helping them recognize them, and basically coming up with a critical question. So, how do you know this is true? What is your source? So, what's the credibility of the person saying that? So, what are the motives? Is there bias involved? So, this type of stuff. So, you can inoculate by asking the right critical questions and just helping especially younger people understand bigger picture, because you really have to teach synthesis in school, not just analysis.
Okay, and you also have you just edited a great volume on this, which I was honored to be a part of. Can you tell folks about that, where they can get it, and what they might find when they purchase it?
Oh yes, you are so kind. So you're talking about this handbook of social and political conflict. Yes, so we worked on this volume for a while, and so the reason we decided to have this book is to tell the public that a lot of what we call conflict is happening here in this country. So, unfortunately, a lot of conflict studies teach conflicts happening in other countries elsewhere. So there is a lot of literature and international conflicts. But I think even intergenerational conflicts, conflicts around hot button issues linked to some major social problems, cancel culture, could be discussed through the prism of social conflict. And I think we underestimate the importance of it. So another problem is that a lot of social conflicts are very politicized. Because every conversation about something that people disagree about, whether it's climate change, abortion, gun control, immigration, turns into a conflict. And then people start using character attacks, and they start using different types of character assassination to basically silence the side or the argument they don't like. So that's why I think it was important for us to have this project and to look at social and political conflict from a different angle. That's why it's interdisciplinary. It's not just people who study conflicts, it's people who represent different fields from psychology to sociology, political science, communication, history. So I think it was a good product, and I'm super happy about that. So thanks for contributing.
Absolutely. And as I recall, a lot of these contributors are from around the globe too, right? These are not just U.S. scholars.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's really a critically important part of it to really understand kind of the global implications of character assassination. So for folks who want to learn more, follow your work, know more about this, attend the conference, which everyone should do, where should they go to find out more?
Well, so basically you can just Google us up. So we CARP, which stands for the Research Lab for Character Assassination and Reputation Politics. And one of my colleagues said, I should use a reputation protection because it feels more therapeutic, and I kind of agree with them. So, so we publish obviously books. So we have several books out there. We have academic articles. We do webinars. We have a YouTube channel. So if you're on YouTube, you can just find Character Assassination Research Lab out there. So yeah, and obviously you can always write to me, and I'll be happy to talk to you.
Absolutely. Give it a follow, give it a like, check out the work. And Sergey, I'm sure character assassination is going nowhere, so I'll have you back on the program. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, unfortunately. All right. Thanks, Nolan.
Hey, Detoxers. Thanks for tuning in. You can find Disinfo Detox on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share. Every click helps grow the community and keeps those tech overlords happy. Detox complete.